Hello. I'm really glad you're here tonight. This hour is different from the rest of the day. It doesn't ask you to decide anything. It doesn't ask you to perform or explain or keep up. It simply invites you to lie still and let your imagination move at its own pace. Tonight, we're not traveling anywhere urgent. We're drifting backward through centuries, across warm ocean waters, toward a world that once hummed with the most extraordinary life. A world of wooden ships and spice-scented winds, of harbor markets that never fully slept, of volcanic islands rising from the Java Sea, like ancient guardians breathing quietly in the dark. The world of the Majapahit Empire, one of the greatest maritime civilizations ever to exist on this earth. And tonight, you are there. As the years pass, nighttime becomes a kind of companion, a place where the mind is free to wander without interruption, where history returns, not as a lesson, not as something to memorize, but as something to feel, as something to inhabit. The past has a way of arriving most honestly in the quiet hours, when the lights are off and the world has gone silent and your body is finally still. That's when you can really hear it, the creak of old timber on deep water, the calls of merchants across a crowded dock, the low, patient rumble beneath the earth that reminds you the islands are alive. These sounds don't belong to any textbook. They belong to this space, the space between waking and sleep, where imagination and memory meet without needing permission. So take a slow breath. Let your body soften into the bed and allow this night to carry you somewhere ancient and alive. And before we begin, if this kind of honest, gentle reflection speaks to you, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. And down in the comments, tell me where you're listening from and what time it is where you are right now. There's something comforting about knowing we're all here together, scattered across time zones, but united in these late hours when the world finally grows still. So settle in, adjust your pillows, find a comfortable position, and know that for the next hour, you're not alone in whatever curiosity you carry, whatever wonder you've never stopped feeling, whatever beauty rises to the surface when the lights go out. Let's begin. You are standing at the edge of the world as it once was, not the world you know, not the world of screens and schedules and the relentless, insistent noise of modern life. You are standing at the edge of a different world entirely, a world that existed in the warm heart of the Indonesian archipelago, somewhere between the 13th and 16th centuries, when the Majapahit Empire was the most powerful maritime force that Southeast Asia had ever known. A civilization that understood the sea, not as a barrier, not as something to fear, but as a living road connecting everything it valued. A highway made of water, a bridge between hundreds of islands, hundreds of peoples, hundreds of languages, all drawn together by the simple and extraordinary fact that they knew how to sail. The air is different here. You notice it immediately. It's thick and warm and carries something you can't quite name at first. Salt, yes, always salt when you're this close to the Java Sea. But underneath that familiar sharpness, there's something sweeter, something that pulls at a memory you didn't know you had, something that exists deeper than ordinary recollection. It's spice, cloves and nutmeg and pepper drifting on the wind from islands you haven't reached yet. Islands that exist somewhere beyond the blue horizon, waiting, fragrant, impossibly distant, and impossibly real all at once. This is what the Majapahit world smells like the ocean and the earth and something rare and precious, riding the wind between them. You're not yet on a ship. You're on land. Solid, volcanic land. And beneath your feet, you can feel something subtle. Not vibration exactly. Not movement. Something deeper than that. A warmth that rises from far beneath the surface, as if the island itself is breathing, as if it's alive in a way that stone and soil have no right to be. The volcanoes of Java don't feel like threats here. Not tonight. Tonight, they feel like old guardians, patient and enormous and ancient beyond any human reckoning. They've been here longer than the empire. They'll be here long after every ship and every harbor and every king has returned to the earth. They simply stand. They simply breathe. And in the shadow of their permanence, human life continues its beautiful, fragile business. You are standing on the northern coast of Java. The year is somewhere in the 14th century, during the reign of Hayam Wuruk, when the Majapahit Empire stretched its reach across hundreds of islands, and the name alone commanded respect from traders as far away as China, India, and Arabia. This is the height of it, the very center of it, the living, breathing heart of one of history's great civilizations. And you are here, right now, on a warm evening when the sea wind is moving in off the water and the last light of the dying sun is turning everything the color of old gold. You walk down toward the harbor, not quickly. There is no reason to hurry here, and something in the warmth of the air itself tells you that. You follow a path that's been worn smooth by thousands of feet over many years. The soil beneath you is reddish and volcanic, rich with minerals that make everything grow in colors that seem almost too vivid to be natural, too saturated to be real. The palms along the path are enormous. Their great fronds catch the evening breeze and make a sound like soft rain, even though the sky above you is completely clear, completely open, perfectly blue at its edges, and deepening towards purple overhead. Between the palms, you catch glimpses of the water, flat and dark and reflecting the last warmth of the sun in fragments, like a bronze mirror broken into 1,000 pieces and scattered across the surface of the sea. The harbor comes into view gradually. First, the masts. Tall wooden poles rising above the tree line, decorated at their tips with woven cloth that moves slowly in the wind like the gentle breathing of something large and calm. Then the hulls, wide and dark and riding deep in the water. The great trading vessels called Jong, some of them extraordinary in their size and ambition, capable of carrying hundreds of people and thousands of pounds of cargo across open ocean, across the monsoon winds, across distances that would seem impossible to anyone who had not watched these people sail. You stop for a moment, just to look at them. They are remarkable, not just as vessels, as achievements, as living proof of what human hands and human minds and human patience can do when they understand wood and water and wind deeply enough to trust their lives to that understanding. The harbor itself is alive in a way that never fully stops, never fully rests, even as the day turns toward evening. There are people everywhere. porters carrying heavy bundles down gangplanks with the practiced ease of men who have done this work for 20 years. Merchants in animated conversation beneath palm leaf awnings, their hands moving in gestures that communicate volumes across the gaps between languages. Children darting between the legs of adults, chasing each other through the crowded space with the total, absolute freedom of children who know this harbor as well as they know their own homes. You hear Javanese, the primary language of the empire, but beneath it, mixing through it, weaving around it, you hear Malay and Mandarin and Tamil and Arabic. This is what a great trade empire sounds like. Not one language, not one people, not one story. Many. All of them present in this harbor because this place is where the world comes to exchange something it values for something else it values more. You walk slowly among all of it. No one notices you particularly. You're simply another presence in the crowd, another body moving through the warm evening air. And you let yourself fall into the rhythm of the place the way you'd fall into the rhythm of music, without thinking, without choosing, simply by being present. The smells reach you in layers. Wood smoke from cooking fires burning at the edge of the market area. The sharp sweetness of palm wine in clay jars stacked near a merchant's stall. The rich, heavy, unmistakable smell of pepper piled in rough woven sacks near the waterline. So dense and sharp it makes your eyes water just to stand near it. And underneath all of it, always, the ocean. That particular smell of deep salt water and living things and ancient depths that is unlike any other smell on this earth. Clean and old and constantly alive. The stalls closest to the water sell things that have come from very far away. You stop at one where a merchant has arranged bags of cloves in careful rows on a low wooden table. Small dark things, almost black, unremarkable to look at. You pick one up and hold it between your fingers, feeling its hard, dry density, its surprising weight for something so small. This is a dried bud from a tree that grows only on distant islands called the Moluccas, the Spice Islands, so far to the east that most of the people working in this harbor today have never actually seen them. The journey to reach those islands and return takes months and requires the kind of seamanship that can only be earned over years of open water sailing. Yet this tiny thing, this dried flower bud from a tree on a distant volcanic island, is worth extraordinary consideration. It will travel from here westward, carried by other ships and other merchants, eventually reaching kitchens and apothecaries and religious ceremonies in places as distant as Venice and Cairo and Malabar. The world will receive it and transform it into something precious beyond ordinary measure. But here, at the source, at the beginning of that long journey, it's simply part of the daily business of being alive in this place. The merchant catches your eye and nods, a brief and dignified acknowledgement. You set the clove back down carefully and move on. The larger ships are being prepared for departure with a particular kind of unhurried, concentrated focus that draws you in and holds you. The men who crew these vessels move through their work the way musicians move through a piece they know by heart. Every rope has a clear purpose and a specific place. Every position on the deck and in the rigging has a reason grounded in accumulated experience. The Jong being loaded at the largest berth is perhaps 40 meters long, with multiple masts and a hull that sits deep and steady and absolutely confident in the water, despite the gentle movement of the evening swells. The wood it's made from is teak, the finest timber that Java produces, cut from forests deep in the island's interior and dragged down to the coast by elephants and oxen and the coordinated, patient labor of many men over many weeks. Even looking at it from the shore, you can feel the quality of it, the care that went into every joint and plank. The ship is a living argument for the civilization that built it. You watch the loading continue, the way a rope is coiled and secured with movements so practiced they're barely conscious, the way a heavy crate of trade goods is guided down into the hold with ropes and experienced hands, voices calling out to each other in a shorthand that only the crew understands. There's a foreman somewhere in the organized chaos calling out instructions in a voice that carries perfectly without ever rising to anger. He's not shouting. He doesn't need to. He's precise. He knows exactly what needs to happen and in what order, and he trusts completely the people around him to do their part without being watched. This is how things work here. Trust built carefully on experience. Competence built patiently on repetition. These men have loaded and unloaded ships their entire working lives. Their fathers loaded ships before them. Some of their sons are here right now, standing just slightly back from the work, learning by watching, learning by doing, becoming the next living generation of this knowledge. The knowledge doesn't live in books here. It lives in people, in hands and eyes and the accumulated instinct of years. The air is growing darker now. Stars are appearing one by one over the Java Sea, arriving softly in the deepening sky, becoming gradually visible as the light fades from blue to purple to black. You find a place to sit near the water's edge, on a low stone wall that still holds the warmth it absorbed from the day's sun. The stone is rough and real under your hands, solid, grounding, and you sit here for a long moment and let yourself feel the full weight of what you're witnessing. This is not decoration. This is not background. This is one of the greatest maritime trading networks the ancient world ever produced. These ships will sail to Borneo and Sumatra and Bali and the Moluccas. Some will venture further still, to Malacca on the Long Peninsula, to the great ports of Ceylon and southern India, to the harbors of southern China, each vessel carrying the products of this world to the next world and bringing back things this world wants in exchange. Silk and porcelain from China, cotton cloth woven in colors that Java cannot produce, gold from the rivers of Borneo, sandalwood from the dry hills of Timor, fragrant and dense and worth the long passage south to retrieve it. The whole world circling through this harbor, this one place, this warm evening, these ordinary people doing extraordinary work on the edge of the sea. You breathe slowly and deeply, and you let the warmth of the evening settle over you like something soft and heavy and kind. The shipbuilding yards are not far from the main harbor. You can hear them before you reach them. The sound of mallets on wood, steady and unhurried, patient as the tide. The kind of sound that has been made every working day in this place for many generations and will be made for many generations more. You follow the sound along a path that runs close to the waterline, past storage sheds that smell of raw resin and fresh sawdust, and the particular sweet smell of teak when it's been recently cut, a smell so specific and so rich that you could identify it with your eyes closed. The yard itself is remarkable to stand inside. Half-finished hulls rise from the dark sand like great wooden creatures, curved and ribbed and vast in the fire-lit dark. The men working on them move along the scaffolding with the ease of people who have absolutely no fear of heights, no hesitation about their tools or their task. They're adzing the hull planks smooth with long, rhythmic strokes that send thin curls of wood falling slowly to the sand below. They're driving wooden pegs called tree nails into tightly fitted joints, each blow of the mallet producing a sound that rings clean and true across the yard. They're working fiber and resin into the seams between planks, pressing it deep with fingers that know how much is enough and when to stop. Every step of this building process has been refined over centuries of use. Every detail of the design carries the memory of lessons learned from storms at sea, from shallow and treacherous reefs, from long passages far from any land. Every curve of the hull is an answer to a question the ocean once asked, and these builders know the answer by heart. The most important thing about a jong, the thing that makes it fundamentally different from the ships being built in Europe at this same moment in history, is the method by which its planks are joined together, not nailed with iron, which would corrode in salt water and split under stress, not bolted with bronze fittings expensive and difficult to replace far from home. The planks of a jong are sewn, literally lashed and sewn together with cord made from the fiber of coconut husks, fiber that has been twisted and braided and proved against the sea over more years than anyone can accurately count. This sounds, to ears accustomed to modern shipbuilding, as though it ought to be fragile. It isn't. The sewn hull is flexible in a way that a rigidly fastened hull never can be. It can flex and give with the movement of heavy ocean swells. It breathes, in a sense, with the rhythm of the sea it travels on. It moves where a stiffer vessel would crack. And because it moves, because it yields rather than resists, it survives conditions that would destroy something built with less wisdom and less patience. These shipbuilders understood something essential about the relationship between rigidity and survival that some maritime traditions took much longer to discover. They learned it from the sea itself, which is the strictest and most honest teacher there is. You run your hand along the planking of a hull that's been freshly shaped and smoothed, not yet joined to the rest of the frame. The wood is warm and silken under your palm, still carrying, it seems, some warmth from the tools that shaped it. This wood was a living tree not long ago. It stood in a forest somewhere on this island or another, growing quietly toward the light for decades, perhaps longer, until men came with knowledge and tools and need and cut it down and dragged it here and began the long, patient work of transforming it into something that would carry human lives across open water and bring them home again. There is something profound in that, something worth pausing over, about the relationship this civilization had with its natural world. Not a relationship of conquest, not a relationship of simple extraction, something more reciprocal, something that understood that the sea and the forest and the volcanic earth were not resources to be used up, but realities to be understood, to be respected, to be learned from carefully and worked with honestly. The foreman of the shipyard is an older man, 60 at least, perhaps older. It's difficult to say. His hands are the most extraordinary thing about him. The hands of someone who has worked wood for his entire life, every working day without exception, for 40 years or more. The skin of his palms is thick and dark and looks like the leather of something that has been worked and oiled for a very long time. His fingers carry the grain of teak wood in their knowledge, the way a musician's fingers carry the intervals of a scale. He doesn't need to measure everything with a tool. He measures with his eyes, with his hands, with a knowledge that lives not in his thinking mind, but in his body, in his muscles and tendons, and the deep automatic understanding that only comes from 10,000 repetitions of the same careful act. He looks at the curve of a finished plank, and he knows, without calculating, without reasoning, whether it's right or not. He feels it. He places his hand flat against the wood, and the wood tells him what he needs to know. You watch him move through the yard for a long time. The way the younger workers glance at him when they're uncertain. Just a glance. Not a question asked out loud, because the question is there in the look, and the answer is in his response. A small gesture, a slight adjustment of the hand, a nod that says yes, or a shake that says try again. He will retire someday. He will die someday. He knows this. Everyone in the yard knows it, and when he goes, something that cannot be fully written down or fully transferred will go with him, not all of what he carries. The knowledge lives now in the hands of his apprentices and in the ships already moving across the sea. But the particular way he holds a draw knife at exactly the right angle, the particular tilt of his head when he's listening to the wood tell him something, these things belong to him alone. They will end when he ends. This is how all human mastery works. This is the grief and the beauty of it. The night is now fully dark around the yard. Fires have been lit at intervals, throwing warm orange and amber light across the wood and the sand, making everything look softly alive. Some of the workers have stopped for the evening and are eating. Rice and fish cooked together in banana leaves that are still green and fragrant. Ginger and galangal and lemongrass that grows wild along every path on this island. You can smell the food and your whole body responds to it. Not just your appetite, your entire nervous system. This is what it means to be fully present somewhere. When the smells reach you so completely that your body receives them before your mind does. You drift away from the yard and back toward the open harbor. The lights of the anchored ships are reflected in the dark water now. Little broken mirrors of flame, shifting and multiplying with the gentle movement of the sea, rearranging themselves endlessly into patterns that almost make sense, and then dissolve before you can read them. The sounds of the harbor have changed with the darkness. The urgent business of the day has softened into something more personal and unhurried. Conversations between friends who have worked alongside each other for years. Someone playing a stringed instrument somewhere nearby, a sound like water moving over smooth stones, a sound you can feel at the center of your chest, a child being called home by a mother whose voice carries through the warm air with such easy, unself-conscious affection that you feel it too, something ancient in you responding to the sound of care moving across the dark. You find the water's edge again without quite deciding to. Your feet are in the warm sand. The Java Sea stretches before you, dark and enormous and patient, and somewhere far beyond the visible horizon lie the islands you haven't visited yet. The Spice Islands, the Maluku Islands, called the Moluccas by traders who couldn't quite hold the local name in their mouths. Islands so fragrant in the old accounts that sailors claimed they could smell them on the wind days before the first dark shape appeared on the horizon. Islands whose soil and climate produce things so rare and so deeply desired by the rest of the world that the entire long arc of history eventually bent toward them. Wars were fought over these islands. Empires rose and fell for access to what they grew. The whole trajectory of the age of European exploration, the long voyages and the violence and the world-changing contact between civilizations that had never known each other, all of it began in some essential way here, with this smell on this wind, with this tiny dried bud held between the fingers of a merchant on this harbor dock at the edge of the warm sea. You close your eyes there at the water's edge. You simply listen. The patient, rhythmic conversation of waves arriving on the sand and retreating back into the dark. It's the same sound it has always been. The same sound it was when the first human beings walked along this shore. The same sound it will be long after everything they built and everything you know has returned quietly to the earth. The ocean is the constant. The ocean is the great witness. These same waves lapped this same dark coast when the first settlers arrived, when the first harbor was built, when the first jong was launched into the water by men who believed in their own craft completely and completely trusted the sea they were entering. A navigator on one of those great trading ships would lie on the deck at night, just as you are lying now, and watch the stars move slowly across the sky. He would feel the direction of the wind against his skin. He would read the shape and color and rhythm of the waves, which told him things about the depth of water beneath him and the land ahead of him. He would smell the changing quality of the air, which shifted as island vegetation approached from over the horizon. He would watch the behavior of birds, which changed as distance from land decreased. All of this continuous information flowing into him, being received by a mind trained over years and years to understand exactly what it meant, being translated in real time into direction and decision and the particular confidence of a man who knows where he is even when there's nothing visible to confirm it. This was navigation without instruments. Navigation as a living conversation between a human being and the natural world around them. Navigation as relationship. You lie back in the sand, the warm volcanic earth beneath you, the enormous sky above, the sound of the water steady and close. You feel the weight of your body release into the ground, muscle by muscle, breath by breath. Your shoulders soften. Your back releases. Your legs let go. Each part of you surrendering a little more to the earth beneath and the night around you. There's nothing required of you in this moment. Nothing you need to decide or remember or manage. You're here. That's all. You're here. And the night is here. And the ancient sea is here. The same sea it has always been. And for now, that is enough. It is more than enough. It is exactly everything. The night is full around you, full of this ancient living world, this empire at the height of its power, this civilization that built its entire existence on the understanding that the ocean connects rather than divides, that the horizon is an invitation rather than an ending, that the wind, if you learn it deeply enough, will take you anywhere you need to go and bring you back again. The maritime world of the Majapahit was built on this understanding and on the patience and the skill and the long accumulated knowledge that made this understanding usable, practical, real, not a philosophy, a way of life. And lying here in the warm, dark sand on the edge of the Java Sea, with the sound of the waves arriving and departing in their ancient rhythm, you feel this understanding settle into you too. Something quiet and essential. Something your daily life rarely makes space for. You are part of something continuous. Something that stretches back long before you arrived in the world and will continue long after you leave it. You are one breath in a conversation that began before language, one moment in a story longer than memory. And this is not a sad thing. There is genuine peace in it, real relief, in being part of something so much larger than your own small and precious life. Your breathing has slowed. You haven't chosen this. It has simply happened, the way sleep approaches when conditions are right, without announcement, without effort, by the simple patient removal of everything that was holding it back. The waves breathe and you breathe with them, in and out, in and out. The sound of the sea and the sound of your own quiet body becoming one sound, one rhythm, one ancient, patient, continuous movement through the dark. The warmth of the earth holds you. The stars above you are the same stars that guided the navigators of the Majapahit fleet across open water in the dark. The wind that moves across your face is the same wind that filled the sails of the Jong as they left this harbor for islands far to the east. Everything connects. Everything continues. And you rest now in that continuity, in that warm, unbroken line between all that came before and all that is still to come. The harbor is quiet now. The fires burn low. The ships rest at their moorings. The great volcanic hills stand in the dark and breathe their ancient breath. The spice wind moves across the water, and you are here in the middle of it all, resting, breathing, belonging completely to this moment and this place and this night. Let the earth hold you. Let the stars keep watch. Let the sea sing its oldest song. And let yourself drift now, gently and without resistance, into the warm dark that waits on the other side of all this beauty. You are safe here. You are held here. The ships rest and the fires burn low, and the great sea moves in its patient, eternal rhythm beneath the stars. And rest is very, very close now. The night has you. The earth has you. The ancient world has wrapped itself around you like the warmth of a hull freshly shaped from living wood. Let it hold you. Let it keep you. close your eyes and rest now, here, at the edge of this beautiful and ancient sea. You are still here, still at the edge of the Java Sea, still held by the warm, dark earth beneath you, still listening to the patient arrival and retreat of waves that have been making this same quiet journey for longer than any empire has existed. The harbor lights are low now. The fires have settled into themselves, burning slow and amber and without urgency, the way all things burn when the night has grown deep enough. The air has cooled by just a fraction, enough to make you feel the warmth of your own body more clearly, the way you feel it most honestly in the space between sleep and waking. The stars are fully out now, every single one of them visible in a sky so clear and dark and enormous it seems to be telling you something important about how small you are and how safe that smallness actually is. You breathe. You remain. You let the ancient world continue to move around you, like water, moving around a stone. You are not finished here. There is more of this world to inhabit before the night is fully done, more of it to feel and witness and carry with you into sleep. So you rise slowly from the sand, not urgently, not with intention exactly, simply following the quiet pull of curiosity that has always been one of the most trustworthy things about you. It leads you now, gently and without rush, away from the harbor's edge and into the interior of this world, into the living heart of what daily existence actually looked like for the people of the Majapahit Empire when the ships were loaded and the tide was right and the sea wind was moving steadily out of the south. You follow the path inland for a little while. The ground beneath your feet changes as you move away from the shore. The packed volcanic sand gives way to dark soil, rich and dense and moist with the memory of recent rain. The path is lined with growth that seems extravagant in its abundance. This is Java. This is what the volcanic earth and the monsoon rain and the endless equatorial warmth produce when left to their full, generous expression. Things grow here the way they grow nowhere else. Quickly and completely and with a density of life that makes the air itself feel thick with intention. Flowering vines have found their way up the trunks of trees that were already old before the empire existed. The smell of night-blooming flowers reaches you in waves as you walk. Jasmine and gardenia and the heavy, slightly narcotic sweetness of something you can't immediately name, but which belongs completely to this place and no other. The village begins before you quite realize you've entered it. There is no formal boundary, no gate or wall or sign of transition. The path simply becomes something that people clearly use every day, worn deeper and wider by daily traffic. And then there are structures, low and wide and built from bamboo and dark wooden and panels woven from palm leaves with a skill and a tightness that keeps the tropical rain completely out. The roofs are steeply pitched, rising high above the living space below to catch and hold the heat that would otherwise press down from above. Every detail of this architecture is an answer to the specific questions that this climate asks. How do you stay cool when the air is always warm? How do you stay dry when the rain arrives with sudden, total commitment every afternoon? How do you build something that breathes while also keeping everything it needs to keep out firmly outside? The people who built these structures found the answers a very long time ago. They live in them now without thinking about them the way you don't think about breathing. The answers have become simply the shape of ordinary life. There are still a few people moving through the village at this hour, though most have found their way inside. An older woman sits outside her doorway on a low wooden step, her hands busy with something in her lap, though in the soft firelight, you can't quite make out what it is. She doesn't look up as you pass. She's utterly at peace with the dark and the hour and the quiet. She has been alive long enough in this place to feel no particular need for anything beyond this moment. The fire, the work in her hands, the familiar sounds of the village settling into its nighttime quiet. She is the kind of person who has become so rooted in a place that she and the place have stopped being entirely separate things. She carries the rhythms of this land in her body, the way the land carries the warmth of the sun in its soil, long after the light has gone. You hear children inside the nearest structure, not crying, not distressed, simply present, making the small sounds that children make in the last minutes before sleep claims them. A murmured conversation, a soft laugh, quickly muffled. Then a parent's voice, low and steady and patient, saying something that you can't quite translate, but whose meaning is completely clear. It means settle. It means rest now. It means the day is done and you are safe and everything will be here again in the morning exactly as you left it. The same words parents have spoken to children in every language that has ever existed on this earth. The same fundamental promise. The children go quiet. You move on. The center of the village holds a fire that has been carefully built and carefully tended through the evening and will be tended still through the night. It's not an enormous fire. It doesn't need to be. It exists for light and for the cooking that continues at its edges, even now. A clay pot sitting close to the coals with something inside it that sends a thread of steam upward into the dark air, carrying the smell of coconut milk and sweet root vegetables and the particular warmth of ginger that has been simmering for a long time. Someone will eat this before dawn. Someone who needs to rise early and begin preparing the boat or the cargo or the market stall for another day's work. They will eat standing up probably, taking the warmth and the fuel quickly and without ceremony, the way working people have always eaten in the early hours when there is work waiting. But the care that went into the preparation, the long, slow simmering, the exact right combination of things, that care is obvious even from here, even at this distance. Someone loves the person who will eat this before dawn. You sit near the central fire for a while, close enough to feel its warmth against your face and the hands. The light it throws is the most ancient and honest light there is. It doesn't flatter exactly, but it reveals something true. In firelight, people look the way they actually are, rather than the way they present themselves. The angles and shadows of the face that ordinary daylight smooths away become visible again. Something essential shows through. You sit in this warmth and you let yourself simply be present in it. No performing, no explaining. Just here, just this. From somewhere in the village, a drum begins. It's very soft, almost tentative at first, as though feeling its way into the night, testing whether the night will receive it. A slow, patient rhythm. Not the rhythm of dancing, not the rhythm of ceremony or celebration. Something lower and more continuous than that. More like the rhythm of breath itself, of a heartbeat sustained over a long, quiet evening. It plays without apparent source, without a visible musician, coming from somewhere between the structures and the dark trees and the warm air itself. The sound settles around the fire and around you and around the whole village, like something laid gently across everything, like a blanket made of sound. You have heard drums before in your life, many kinds of drums in many contexts, but this one is different. This one is not asking anything of you. It is simply marking time in the oldest possible way, reminding everything that has ears that the night is moving, that the hours are passing, that this moment, like every moment before it, will give way to the next moment in its own good time. You don't need to hurry that process. You don't need to slow it. You simply need to be inside it, present in it. Let the drum mark the time and let the time move at its own pace, and trust that morning will come when morning comes, and that the night between now and then is not empty, but full. Full of this sound and this warmth and this ancient, patient world breathing all around you. Your eyes grow heavy near the fire. This is the body being honest with you. This is your body telling you something important in the only language it has, which is sensation, warmth and weight, and the gradual, inevitable pull toward horizontal. You have been upright long enough. You have been awake long enough. The world around you is beginning to soften at its edges the way worlds do when sleep is approaching. And you let it soften. You don't resist it. You don't try to hold the sharpness of things by force of will. Sharpness is for the daytime, for decisions and work and the complex navigation of other people's needs and your own. The night asks for something else. The night asks for softness, for the willingness to let things become less defined, less certain, less controlled. And you offer this willingly. You have earned this softness. But before you sleep, there is one more thing to see. One more part of this world that wants to be known before the darkness takes you fully. You feel it like a quiet invitation rather than an obligation, a gentle hand on your shoulder rather than a command. You follow it back toward the harbor, back along the path that runs close to the water, but this time heading east rather than south, following the coast in the direction the trading ships will sail when the monsoon wind turns in a few weeks and gives passage to the spice islands that you've been smelling all evening from across the sea. There are men at work here, even now, not building ships tonight. Tonight, they're mending nets, though these are not fishing nets exactly. They are rigging. Lengths of rope made from twisted coconut fiber, thick as a man's wrist in places, that will be used to control the great sails of the Jong when it sets out on its next passage. The men work by the light of oil lamps suspended from wooden frames, their hands moving through the familiar repeated motions of splicing and binding with the pure unconscious ease that only very long practice makes possible. They speak quietly among themselves as they work. Not about the rigging. The rigging doesn't need to be discussed. Their hands know what to do and do it without consultation. They speak about other things, about a cousin's wedding in a village 2 days' walk to the west, about the quality of the rice harvest in the eastern paddies this season, about a story that one of them heard from a Chinese merchant who arrived last week, a story about a place so far to the north that the winters there are white and cold beyond imagining, a place where water falls from the sky solid instead of liquid and covers everything, in a silence so complete that even the birds stop singing. They find this genuinely extraordinary, the idea of solid falling water. They've seen cold, these men. They know what cold is. They've felt the chill of a squall moving through in the hours before dawn. But cold enough to turn water solid and make it fall from the sky. This information requires consideration. It requires turning over slowly in the mind, like something you've found on the beach that you're not sure yet how to categorize. One of the men tries to imagine it and can't quite, and laughs a little at his own failure of imagination. Another one says something that makes the others laugh too. You can't quite hear what he says, but the laughter is genuine and unforced and belongs completely to this moment of these men around this lamp on this warm, dark coast while their hands continue working without stopping. You think about the Chinese merchant who brought this story. He arrived here after months at sea, carrying silk and porcelain in the holds of his vessel, planning to exchange these things for spices and sandalwood and the particular quality of Javanese cotton cloth that had no equivalent in his homeland. He arrived here a foreigner, someone whose language and customs and understanding of the world were different from everything around him. And he sat somewhere in this harbour town and told his extraordinary story about white falling water to people who had never imagined such a thing. And they listened and they laughed a little and they went home and told their families. And the story moved through the community the way water moves through soil, finding every available path, reaching places that seemed entirely disconnected from where it began. This is what trade actually is when you follow it down to its roots. It isn't only the exchange of goods, it's the exchange of worlds, the constant, surprising, transformative collision of different ways of being human, different ways of understanding the earth and the sky and the nature of water and the proper relationship between a person and the sea. The Majapahit Empire understood this, not perhaps in those exact words, but in the way it was organized, in the way it structured its relationship to the trading world around it. It built its power not only through military strength, but through the understanding that a place where trade flows freely and fairly becomes a place that everyone wants to come to, where merchants feel safe, where their goods are protected, where the weights and measures used in the market are honest, where the harbour facilities are reliable, where the pilots who guide ships through the reefs know what they're doing. That place becomes a centre of the world. The Majapahit made themselves that centre. They made these harbours places worth crossing the ocean to reach, and the world came. From China and India and Arabia and Siam and everywhere in between, the world came to these harbours and brought itself with it, brought its languages and its gods and its cuisines and its technologies and its stories about white falling water. And the empire was enriched by all of it, made more complex and more resilient and more interesting by every foreign ship that found its way to these docks. You stand for a long time listening to the men work on their rigging. The lamplight, the quiet voices, the sound of the sea moving against the pilings of the nearest dock. Somewhere behind you, the soft drum from the village is still sounding, still marking time, still laying its patient rhythm over the darkness. The spice wind is stronger now, coming off the sea with more intention than it had earlier in the evening, carrying the fragrance of distant islands directly to you. Cloves and nutmeg from the Moluccas, a ghost of sandalwood from further south, something floral and unidentifiable that belongs to no island you could name, the combined perfume of an entire world of islands, all of it moving westward on the same steady wind. You think about the men who sail toward that fragrance, the navigators who read the stars and the waves and the wind and the birds and the color of the water, the sailors who climb the rigging in the dark to adjust a sail while the ship moves beneath them on the open sea, nothing visible in any direction except stars above and the dark swell of the ocean below, and the knowledge of where they are held entirely in their own bodies, in their own practiced understanding of everything the world is telling them. This is not recklessness. This is not the foolhardy courage of people who don't know what the sea can do. These are people who know exactly what the sea can do, who have seen it in its worst moods and survived by skill and judgment and the specific kind of calm that only becomes available when panic has been consciously set aside. They sail because they know how to sail, because the knowledge has been built into them over years and generations, because the sea is not their enemy. It is their element, the thing they are most fully themselves within. And when they return, after weeks or months of open water and foreign harbors and the particular solitude of being far from home in a way that city people never understand, when they bring their jong back through the familiar channels of this harbor and feel the known ground of Java beneath their feet again, the relief of it, the almost physical joy of recognition, that is home. That smell of volcanic soil and growing things and the particular quality of the evening light falling through the palms, that is what they carried in their minds across all that water. The specific, irreplaceable smell of the place they come from, the place that holds everyone they love, the place that was here before they left and is here when they return and will be here. They hope and trust and need to believe every time they come back. You understand this feeling. You know it. Not necessarily from crossing an ocean, not in those specific terms, but you know what it means to carry a place inside you when you are somewhere else. You know what it means to have a home so deeply internalized that you can feel it when you close your eyes, a smell or a sound or a quality of light that belongs to nowhere else. You've carried your own home inside you through every difficult thing life has asked you to travel through. And that carrying is its own kind of navigation, its own kind of seamanship. Finding your way back to yourself when the crossing has been hard. The rigging men have finished their work. They're rolling up the lengths of repaired rope with practiced hands, coiling them into neat, organized shapes that will be easy to work with in the morning. They exchange a few final words. One of them stretches his back and makes a sound that belongs entirely to the language of people whose bodies have worked hard and honestly and are now fully ready to stop. They collect their lamp and their tools and move away along the dock in the direction of wherever they sleep. Their footsteps quiet on the worn wood of the walkway, their voices fading as the darkness closes gently around them. You are alone at the water again. Just you and the lamp they left behind, still burning low, throwing a small circle of warm gold light over the dock and the dark water below it. The flame moves in the sea wind without going out. It has found its balance in the air currents of this particular place and holds to that balance with the quiet persistence of everything in this world that has learned to live within its conditions rather than against them. The water beneath the dock is very dark and very clear. In the lamplight, you can see fragments of it, the surface reflecting back the flame in wavering repetitions, and beneath the surface, the shapes of things moving through the water on their own dark business. Fish, the dark shapes of posts driven deep into the harbour floor to anchor the docks, the ropes of moored vessels disappearing down into the depths. The stars overhead are extraordinary. You've noticed them before tonight, but now, with the harbour quiet and the lamp burning small, and the village drum finally stilled, now you can really see them. They fill the sky from horizon to horizon with a completeness that makes the darkness seem not empty, but dense. Not the absence of light, but the presence of depth. The same stars that guided the Majapahit navigators, the same stars that sailors everywhere on this planet, in every era of human maritime history, have used to find their way across the dark water. The stars have been the most reliable constant in the entire history of human navigation. Everything else changes. Coastlines shift over geological time. Harbour entrances fill with silt. Reefs grow and dissolve. But the stars remain in their patterns, moving in their great reliable circles, always there when the sky clears and the eyes look up and the need for direction is real and urgent. The navigator looks up and the sky tells him where he is. The sky has been doing this for every sailor who has ever sailed. It is doing it right now. Your body is fully ready for sleep. You can feel it in the way your thoughts are moving, not in straight lines anymore, but in gentle curves, looping back on themselves, finding unexpected connections between things. This is the thinking of the body in the last hours before sleep, not the sharp analytical thinking of daylight, but something more associative, more poetic, more willing to let things be next to each other simply because they feel related, rather than because logic has confirmed the relationship. This thinking is actually very close to the kind of thinking that produces wisdom. Not certainty, not answers, but understanding. The quiet recognition of pattern, the felt sense of how things belong together. You lie back on the dock. The warm wood receives you. The smell of the sea is right there, immediate, filling your chest with each breath. The lamp burns beside you. The stars move overhead in their patient ancient procession. You are in the 14th century on the northern coast of Java in the greatest maritime empire that Southeast Asia has ever known. And you are also exactly where you are right now, in your own bed, in your own body, in your own life. Both of these things are true. Both are real. The imagination doesn't take you away from yourself. It takes you deeper into yourself, into the part of yourself that has always known it belongs to something continuous and enormous and fundamentally good. The ocean breathes. You breathe with it. The flame of the lamp bends and straightens in the sea wind. The stars turn their slow overhead turn. The whole island of Java sleeps in its volcanic warmth, all its people settled into their rest after the long, full day. The harbor workers and the shipbuilders and the merchants and the mothers and the children and the old woman with her hands in her lap and the navigators resting their extraordinary minds for the passages that await ahead. All of them here, all of them part of this same warm dark, all of them trusting the night to hold them until morning calls them back to the world. The spice wind comes in off the water one more time. Cloves and salt, and the faintest possible whisper of something growing on a distant island that no one in this harbor has ever seen, but everyone knows by its fragrance. The world is wide and deep and unimaginably full of things worth knowing, full of people worth understanding, full of knowledge worth the long ocean crossing to reach and the longer ocean crossing home, full of harbors waiting to be found and harbors waiting to be returned to. The Majapahit knew this. They built their entire civilization on this knowing, and lying here at the edge of their ancient sea, breathing the same air they breathed, hearing the same water they heard, feeling the same warm volcanic earth beneath, and the same infinite sky above. You know it too. You know that everything is connected. You have always known it. You know that the distances between things are never as absolute as they appear, that the ocean is a road, not a wall, that the horizon is an invitation, not an ending, that the wind that carries fragrance from distant islands is the same wind that fills the sail, that brings the ship home again, that every departure contains within it the possibility of return, that the world, for all its difficulty and its grief and its genuine losses, is fundamentally generous, fundamentally hospitable to the human spirit, when the human spirit brings patience and skill and the willingness to learn. The Majapahit learned this on the water. You have learned it in your own ways, on your own passages, through your own years of sailing toward things you needed and returning to things you loved. The lamp is burning very low now. The oil is almost gone, and the flame has become something small and intimate, barely more than a glow, throwing the most minimal possible light over the dock and the dark water and your resting body. It's about to go out, and when it does, the darkness will be complete except for the stars, which are enough. The stars have always been enough. They were enough before the first lamp was lit, and they will be enough when the last lamp burns out, and they are more than enough for this moment, this breath, this last waking thought before sleep takes you fully and finally into its care. The fires die down, the stories settle, the world grows still. Let your thoughts drift away now, like embers on the wind, like the smoke from a spice merchant's fire, rising slowly into the warm, dark air of a harbor that has been alive and human and full of meaning for more centuries than you can count. Let the stories of this world settle around you like the fine ash that the volcanoes sometimes send drifting down over the coast on quiet mornings, covering everything in a layer so thin it's barely visible but present. Real. A reminder that the deep earth is alive, that it has been alive since before the first human set foot on these islands, that it will be alive long after the last lamp has burned and the last ship has sailed and the last harbor has returned to the sea. You have journeyed far through time tonight, farther than you knew when you lay down. You've sailed the warm waters of the Java Sea without ever leaving your bed. You've stood in the shipbuilding yard and felt the warmth of teak under your hand. You've smelled the cloves and the nutmeg and the sandalwood drifting on the monsoon wind from islands so beautiful they could make you cry. You've sat beside the fire at the center of a village that has been doing its ordinary, extraordinary human business for longer than your nation has existed. You've watched the navigators prepare their ships for passages that would terrify most people and inspire anyone who truly understands what human beings are capable of when they trust themselves and trust the sea. You've been here, fully here, in this ancient and living world, in this civilization that understood that the ocean connects and the wind carries and the stars guide, and the hands of a skilled person, working honestly, can build something beautiful enough and strong enough to cross any water. You've carried it with you through this night, and you'll carry it forward into your sleep, and it will be there in the morning, not as a detailed memory necessarily, but as a feeling, as a quality of warmth that will be hard to explain, but easy to feel. The warmth of having been somewhere real and generous and true. The warmth of having let yourself be held by a world much larger than your own daily concerns. The warmth of belonging, however briefly, to something ancient and continuous and worthy of the belonging. Now it's time to journey into dreams. The same dreams that rose from the sleep of the sailors and the merchants and the builders and the navigators all those centuries ago on this same warm coast, under these same patient stars. The same dark and generous space that has received every human being who has ever lived after the day was done and the lamp was out and there was nothing left to do but trust the night. Close your eyes. Breathe. Let the spice wind carry you. Let the sound of the Java Sea rock you in its ancient patient rhythm. Let the warmth of volcanic earth hold you the way it has held every living thing on these islands since the beginning. Let the stars keep their watch above you. You are in good hands tonight, the oldest hands there are. Close your eyes, breathe, and let sleep find you. The harbor is still. The great wooden ships rest at their moorings, rising and falling on the breath of the sea. The spice wind has carried its last fragrance of the evening. The volcanoes stand in the dark, breathing their ancient breath, patient and enormous and full of warmth that asks nothing except that you receive it. The night is complete. Sleep now. You are safe. You are held. You are home. Always.